Welcome back to Tau Talk, where we dive into the weekly ebbs and flows of Bittensor. Cost is launching a subnet. Score secures a $300 million partnership, and so much more. I'm your host, 563, and backed by popular demand. This week, I'm happy to be joined by Mark Jeffrey, host of Hash Rate Podcast. Mark, how's it going? Thanks for coming back.
Hey, pretty good. Crazy week, huh?
Yeah, I know. We were just talking about how insane this week has been. There's just so much to cover. It's gonna take us. It's gonna be a feat to go through all of it, but I'm excited to hop in with you, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's just show on the road.
Let's just get right to it. And there's a ton to go through. So yeah, let's hop on. Let me bring up the slides. So this week's headlines. Obviously the big one for this week, Tau pilling over in Paris. Proof of talk is going on, or just finished up over in Paris. What have been your takeaways from that, man?
Yeah, I stayed up to watch the main stage most of night. Well, my night one, day one for them, right? So I'm in Los Angeles. This happened in Paris, and my takeaway was this was a very big coming out party for Bittensor. So there were a number of people that were sort of exposed to it that probably had never seen it before or didn't realize like how big it was, right?
Yeah.
So and I saw a lot of people in my feed talking about it that weren't normally Bittensor people. So for me, and James Altucher was there. I saw him in the audience, and I later spoke with him sort of privately about some other stuff. And it was the first time we've ever spoken. So to see someone like James Altucher, who was for those of you who don't know, he was a big Bitcoin guy very early on in sort of the last decade or so. Made a fortune in the Bitcoin side of things, and hasn't really been that excited about any crypto until right now. And now he's completely all in on Tau, and he was at the event. And to see him, like Barry Silbert, he's like an OG of Bitcoin, right? So to see that style of personality, their heads kind of just turn and get phaser lock on Bittensor and Bittensor only. To me, that's very significant, right? So, I found that pretty significant, and I also found the announcements of all of the institutional investment vehicles and technology to also be very interesting. That was not what I expected to happen, by the way. I expected the consumer bridges and use your Solana wallet to buy shoots or whatever, right? That kind of technology and that kind of market. I thought that was going to power the subnets first. That stuff's not even here yet, and already we have these sort of public Tau treasury companies, kind of like MicroStrategy of Tau kinds of things, as well as hedge funds specifically set up to invest in subnets. So all the activity there, I think, for me, was the big takeaway from Paris.
It's super interesting, right? We have the institutions here before the degens.
Yeah.
It's completely backwards from what people thought.
Yeah, no, but it makes sense though, right? Like in retrospect, I'm kind of like, oh, duh, I should have seen this. But because because the subnets and the AI projects are more serious, it's a higher class of product, right? Compare that to virtuals where you have a bunch of meme coins with mouths, right? They're right. They're chat bots on Twitter, and that's it, right? And then over here we have Templar trying to build decentralized training, right? It's a complete, this is like a Manhattan Project kind of thing, right? So the fact that the projects are classier, more real, more hardcore science stuff would attract a higher caliber of investor, right? It makes sense. They're symmetrical. So in retrospect, it makes sense.
Yeah, and it probably should have been more obvious when we were at Endgame, right? And it was mostly, we were talking to VCs and whatnot. It wasn't too many like crypto native folks. It was more,
you're right,
very like institution folks.
Yeah. So the smart money is starting to head this way. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, man. And speaking of which, we had Yuma is working on this asset management business. And yeah, basically trying to smooth out the process for institutions to invest in alpha token strategies. This is right up Barry and DCG's alley, right?
Yeah, completely. And I think, so actually I was talking to a guy named Rob Greer, and he's also doing he's got something called Tau. I'm spacing the name of it at the moment, but he's basically also doing like a hedge fund / public company thing. I think it's just a hedge fund. He's just doing a hedge fund. But anyway, so he was telling me that there were now institutional solutions because I asked them, because people have approached me about maybe doing a hedge fund a couple times, and
Mhm.
specifically a Bittensor hedge fund. And it's not my normal world. I come out of doing startups, so there have been a few moments in my history where I've looked into, okay, how would I do this? And one of the big questions that comes up is custody, and how do
Right.
you don't want to just have like a ledger in a sock drawer, right? For like $100 million of other people's money, right? So, um, so basically, having this infrastructure and stuff like this that Yuma has just announced to onboard, asset management specifically into alpha tokens and to custody it, and to track it and to do all the reports and the taxes and all that stuff. You have to have that has to be in place first before institutions can arise to take that money in, right? Because they need that infrastructure. And Rob made me aware that I guess Copper is already doing it. BitGo, I don't know if BitGo is working with Yuma, but BitGo also announced that they were
Yep.
doing it this week as well. And this announcement's very big, and this is great Barry Silbert stuff. This is what he did for Bitcoin, right?
Exactly.
Basically created all these utilities and stuff that made um, commercial adoption of Bitcoin more likely and more possible. So to me, this is massive. Thank you, Uncle Barry, because we need this.
And basically, you get to use all the lessons learned from like the Bitcoin side of things through DCG to, do the same thing with Bittensor. Because
Yeah.
obviously, it's way more complicated now. There's more tokens. There's different APYs you have to keep track of. So I'm sure custody is kind of a headache as well.
Well, yeah, and don't forget also that alpha tokens are not, my alpha token and your alpha token are not equal because my alpha token may be staked with Tau.com and your
Right.
alpha token may be staked with Rizzo, right? Like they're not the same alpha token because they get different validators they're staked with, right? So if you're Yuma and you run a Yuma validator and then you have this institutional management thing, which version do you of the token do you think that's going to stake, right? It's going to stake the Yuma validated version of that alpha token most likely, right? So that Yuma's validator can earn more money. So this is a great way to recruit stakers, right? As a side effect, right? Um so yeah, and I suspect that's why Kraken's running a validator right now too. I don't have any inside information on this, but if Kraken is running a validator, odds are very good, in my opinion, and it's just an opinion, that they will at some point soonish start. They'll open the front door to trading alpha tokens on Kraken. So you'll see Kraken USDC, Shoots USDC, Shoots Bitcoin, right? You'll see those pairs arise. And the version of the Shoots token will be staked that they sell will be staked, auto staked with Kraken's validator, right? Like I think that's how it's going to go.
That's super interesting. Yeah, I don't envy my accountant this year. They're going to be very upset.
Yeah, or mine. I completely
Yeah,
agree. Yeah,
exactly.
I usually use one of the automated tools to do it, like a Zen Ledger is what I use.
Yeah,
And yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do it next year. It's the first year where I've got like sort of something outside of Zen Ledger. So
it's going
yeah,
to be a
it's
mess.
going to be
But
fun.
I mean, that's if we're feeling that, obviously, at the next level of custody, it's going to be insane. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, Yuma's probably leading the charge there. So good on them. Awesome, man. There's this huge announcement from Score. They had this $300 million partnership. So basically, um, now it's like DraftKings AI is using their data to make sports prediction bets, and this huge the DAO has $300 million in AUM, is looking to use those signals to power their strategies. So huge integration for these guys, and it just shows the power of like what these signals can get you. And they don't have like anything like this that's off of Bittensor, right? You can't just plug into these computer vision models that exist in the open. So something truly unique that's being built on Bittensor.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy because this guy, I saw his appearance on Novelty Search like a couple of weeks ago, whenever that was, and yeah, the computer vision applied to sports. Mostly the way I understood it was mostly so that the sports teams, they're selling the computer vision to the sports teams so that they can the AI can watch the team and basically figure out like things like, oh, this, you should play this center more often on these kinds of plays, kind of the money ball kind of sports stat stuff. I did not know that they were actually also using it for betting. I think this is new, right? Like this is not their original use case. At least that's the way I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah,
You know?
I think this project has been around for a little while, but it's only getting to that point now where these signals are being used for betting and that they're useful enough for betting because I don't know how real time they are right now. I
Yeah.
think that's the next step is bringing them into real time.
Yeah, so real time vision. Yeah, because I know. I mean, there've been other betting things on Sports Tensor, right? So there, or at least stock picking things. So PTN, Subnet 8,
Of course.
proprietary trade network, right? Like that's specifically, to predict prices of crypto and stocks, right? Like that's its purpose in life. And that one has fallen out of favor as of late, right? That was a hot one for a while. Then they did a novelty search, and the sort of consensus among the OG crowd of Bittensor was that they had been slurping too much emissions over too long a period and produced too little. Right now, is that fair or not? I mean, my personal opinion is that I think the mob may have been a bit unfair to them.
Right.
um, I feel like they're making a much more mature product, and it just takes time, and they're working on it, and they'll kick it out in the fall, and that just, it takes time for what they're building. Obviously, the intelligentsia of Bittensor disagrees with me because it's slashed their subnets price in half, right? So it's either a bargain right now, and I'm right, or they're right, and it's just dumb, right? And the market will decide which one it is, but yeah, PTN is. I was aware of what they were doing in betting, but I wasn't really sure that this is a new one for Score, as far as I know.
Yeah, there are a couple other prediction subnets, obviously, but like you said, the nice part of this is that the market gets to decide, and
Yeah,
um, yeah, I'm excited to see that. But I wanted to talk about Simply Tau. You went into a little bit of back and forth with these guys on Twitter. They're working on like a fiat to DTAU ramp, so you can
yes,
just swipe your credit card and buy alpha tokens. Pretty wild.
yeah. This is super awesome. I've not seen this yet. I just saw it announced, right? So I hadn't heard of these guys at all until like maybe 2 weeks ago, and they just sort of came out of the woodwork and were like, "Hey, so we're doing the first one of these things," right? And like anyone who watches Hash Rate knows, I've been just raging about this topic for months, right? I'm like, when will the day come when I, as a mere mortal with just a Solana wallet or an Ethereum wallet, can just use my Sol or ETH with using my MetaMask or Phantom wallet, and I just want to buy some Templar. Like I don't want to figure out how to enter the Tau ecosystem. I don't want to get like my Polkadot wallet and connect it to my ledger. F
Right.
that. I just want to use the stuff I already own, the coins I already own in the wallet I already have, and I just want to buy that Templar stuff, right? And because once that liquidity can get at our subnets, I believe that they will explode in valuation. The subnet price, the subnet market caps are insanely low compared to their commensurate products, either in other ecosystems in crypto or in the real world, right? So I've been dying for someone to sort of crack this, and I know there's 7 or so efforts afoot with various approaches to provide what I just described. But Simply Tau is the first one that says, that said we're very close to launching. Now they haven't launched yet. They just went to proof of talk and demoed their product, and I have yet to see it because I was not at proof of talk. However, I'm in direct contact with these Simply Tau folks. They're going to give me a private demo, which I'm dying to see because I really want this world to exist. And I mean, just off the top of my head, the virtuals ecosystem. I don't know how much you paid attention to that.
Yep.
You know about that, right? So I think it was on base,
Yep.
um, and they launched really dumb things that had somewhere between 1 and 5 billion with a B dollars in valuation, right? They were just, again, meme coins with mouths, and you know dumb things that took off like bats out of hell. Meanwhile, our largest market cap in the Bittensor ecosystem is $120 million, like for shoots. It's schlumpy
It's
compared
crazy.
to right these other things, right? And it should be a lot higher. I mean, that should be at least $1 billion in my opinion. But why isn't it? Well, because there's not enough liquidity in the Tau ecosystem. It's all on Solana. It's all in Ethereum, right? We need bridges from that liquidity into our universe. These things provide that. So I'm very excited to see the launch of these things.
100%. Awesome, man. I wanted to highlight Gradients. They pushed out this new paper talking about how they're right now they're state of the art in AutoML. So for folks that don't know, they're beating Hugging Face, they're beating Together AI, Databricks, Google Cloud on people can just upload a base model and upload a data set, and you will get back the best in the world model based on that training data. And it's happening right now in Bittensor. I don't think people are paying attention enough to this.
What do you think is like super? Why are? Let me ask you this: why are not other AI providers like ChatGPT and other people providing this same thing? Like how are we? How is Bittensor beating them?
So I think the edge here is that there's such a fat tail of customers down the line. So every person, every organization is going to need some kind of fine-tuned model for their data.
Mm-hmm.
And ChatGPT just doesn't do that for you. You get their fine-tuned model based on what they think you are going to need. It's not fine-tuned on what specifically you want to accomplish. So that's what Gradients is trying to do with AutoML, where you can just say, here's a bunch of data for my stuff, and I want to use this base model as, as a starting point. But now I can like tell the model exactly how I want it to act and give it like a starting point there. And what do these other projects do, like Hugging Face or Together AI? They don't have a competition going on. They just have this preset. This is what happens when you plug in a model and a data set. It'll just spit out something on the other end. But what Gradients does, it makes it a competition and says, okay, all of these miners will compete to get you the best model possible. So that way you get the best model and not just a one-off.
Got it. Okay. So basically the other guys are like one size fits all. So
Yes.
this is sort of like long tail extreme customization with a competition thrown in there for the best long tail customization. So yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, man. And these guys are like, people are actually paying for these like fine-tuned models. It's a lot cheaper than what you would have to pay for like Hugging Face or Together AI, but it's still like people are like real paying customers are coming to a Bittensor subnet and paying for it. So I think Gradients, even though it's like what top 5 still, I still think it gets underrepresented.
Oh, completely agree. Completely agree. Yeah, no, I think all these things are way too low. And the reason why is because the root is too damn high. I'm gonna keep saying
that.
Until
we're seeing that everywhere, really, with with Dave, and even like Keith was saying.
Keith is on a Keith Singery. Yeah, Keith is on a rampage. Like
Keith is on a rampage.
I didn't know he was a believer in the root is too damn high until last night when I just like a big tweet stream from him. He's on board with that idea now completely. So I don't know, what does this mean? Does this mean we're gonna get to change it? I'd say the voices are rising, so my fingers are crossed because I think it should be changed.
Yeah, I'm definitely behind like a measured approach to it for sure. I like Dave's idea of like a halving schedule, but even if it was just a more aggressive root prop like decay, I think that makes sense too. But I think we have to have that conversation.
It's just look, we are incentivizing, not incentivizing. The longer that we have this large root APY, like it's welfare. It's like it's like a kid's living in their parents' basement eating candy bars, right? Instead of working for a living. And like, why should they work for a living? Why should they ever leave the basement, right? And so this amazing incentivization network is getting dragged down by all the welfare kids, right? So that's the problem. That's bad. That's exactly the opposite of what's awesome about this. So yeah.
Exactly, man. And we didn't even have time to put the Templar and Gradients announcement that they're teaming up. So they're going to be having the pre-training and mid-training over on Templar, and then the post-training over on Gradients. I'm excited to see what that collaboration brings.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome. So yeah, very exciting.
Pumped for that, man. And then obviously more Tau Treasury companies emerging. James here is talking about SNPX on top of Oblong over in the US. There's SFL over in Stockholm and Tau in London. There's more, obviously, that we don't even have on here. Yeah, what do you make of all this? This is just
I,
insane interest, as we talked about on the
this is,
institutional level.
yeah. I mean, we talked about Altucher a little bit earlier in the show, and I've spoken with him now, and I'd never spoken with him before recently. It's like even though we're both sort of, we're old guys from the old universe, we just never ran into each other. But I'd heard of him. I've known about him for about a decade plus. Um, but yeah, he very very smart dude, very early, usually very early to things, dude. And he is completely all in on Bittensor, as I said. Just go look at his tweets. And like maybe a month and a half ago, he wasn't, right. Like he was sort of not saying anything about it. And he got the religion in a big way, and no hesitation, dove into the deep end, which I admire that. I love that, right? Like once you get phaser lock, you're rolling up in a Klingon space, phasers firing, right? So I kind of like that vibe, right? So and I try to do that myself. So all teacher doing it is important, and I think, and all these treasury companies popping up. There's XTAU as well as in there, right? They were they were
Yep.
the only one as far as I knew, right? They're still not, they still haven't launched yet. They're going to launch on a
They're getting a
Canadian
front
stock
run from
exchange.
all these guys.
Yeah, they get front run by all these dudes. Like, well, these guys already had a public, shell company, like this SNPX thing that Altucher's involved with. That was like a biotech company, right? Like a penny stock biotech company that he just sort of, now it's a Tau
Yeah,
Treasury company, right? So he found a vehicle that was already public that he could sort of glom into. So and he said that he wants to get it up to like $100 million, right? So
that's some big size. Do you think that's possible?
I think it is for him. I think he knows the people, right? So, and he's sticking his name on, he's putting the sticker of his name on the outside door. So I think, yes, I do think it's possible. And I've heard rumors of other ones that are even bigger. And I don't know whether they're true or not, but I've heard like, a $200 million one, um, and a couple of $200 million plus ones. So I think, I mean, people have seen what's happened with MicroStrategy, and then there's a Solana one, right, where it had like a 10x, like MicroStrategy is like 3x nav, right? And the Solana one is like 10x nav.
Oh
So
wow.
because Solana, ostensibly is harder to get into. Tau is even more difficult for people to get into, right? Like
Yeah.
compared to Solana and Bitcoin. So holy shit, the multiple should be, I don't know, 20x, right? So I think that's sort of the calculus here. Um, is that true or not? I don't know, but the market seems to like these things. It does seem to be very difficult for people in other countries, and even other crypto ecosystems to get into. So, is there a premium on them? I think there is. So, yeah, I'm talking to crypto people. Like I get asked every day from my old world crypto friends, "Hey, how do I get into this Tau thing? Like, how do I stake in subnets again? Like, how does that work?" Right? Like it's weird at first, right? It's
Yeah,
unlike anything
it's
else.
tricky.
It's not like get your MetaMask, tune it to this EVM clone chain, and here's where the Uniswap is. Like it's not that, right? And that's too hard for most people. So yeah, so I think that the Tau, and I think that this means the institutional money. What Pomp had on some institutional guy. I forget who he was, but he runs a regular world stock hedge fund. And this guy was saying that, and he wasn't a crypto guy at all, right? And his customers were not crypto people. And his non-crypto customers were asking him, how do I get into Tau and Bittensor? Right. And he said, and they're only asking about that, even compared to Bitcoin. All right. People have never invested in crypto are asking, how do I get into Bittensor and Tau? So the smart money, they see something big here and they want in. So these Tau treasury companies allow all these people a vehicle to get in. So I think we're just going to see more of them. They're going to keep popping up like mushrooms everywhere. So
It certainly seems like that, man. There's new ones every week and several new ones every week. So I'm excited to
yeah,
see where it goes.
these Oblong guys, I had never heard of them before, and they're apparently here in LA. And
Oh,
I
you
had
gotta meet
thought
them.
I'd met all the Bittensor people in LA. And I'm going to meet them hopefully for the first time this coming Tuesday, where Rob Greer and I are holding we're co-hosting a Taco Tuesday dinner at a Mexican restaurant, right? And we have like 20 RSVPs, and hopefully the Oblong guys RSVP'd. So I'm really looking forward to meeting them. I don't know anything about them at all. So
That's a good sign, though.
yeah,
Love it. People coming together.
yeah.
Love to
Subnet
see it.
33 will be there, so that'll be cool. So
Oh,
that's
perfect.
yep. So the Ready AI guys will be in the house or in the casa, as it were, and the hacienda, and Fred Krueger from Subnet 90 is going to be there
Yeah.
also. Subnet 90 has been catching a lot of flack lately because they haven't done much, but
Right.
I happen to have it on good authority, possibly from Fred himself, that they are now back in motion on actually making stuff happen with Subnet 90. So I think you'll see more activity there than you've seen so far.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he cooks over there. I
Yeah,
know the market can be rough on everybody, especially
it
when
can
everything
be.
has a token attached to them. So I can only imagine. But yeah, man, I wanted to talk about our fresh blood. We've had so many new subnets pop up, so let's go into it. I mean, obviously, IOTA went live, Subnet 9 rebrand over there. They're working on distributed training, trying with a 15 billion parameter model off the rip. And they're really joining in on the fun with Templar. What did you make of this? They had the novelty search live at the Louvre. It was a sight to behold.
Yes, no, and so I tried to watch that because I didn't see it live, but I tried to go to the YouTube. The audio was bad, so I have
That
not
must
been
be
able
bad.
to sort of get a good mind meld on this. Um, what I know of it, I know Will's been on Hash Rate, and he's the guy in the picture here, Will Squires, um, and I didn't really, as far as I can tell, what they're doing is they're competing with Templar. Like it's sort of a head-to-head competition. I
Yeah.
can't tell. I don't see anything different about it than Templar. It's just, Templar's doing Coke, they're doing Pepsi, which they're very smart guys. They run 4 subnets, right? They've actually got 4
5,
subnets.
I think.
Is it 5 now? Okay, great. So, which maybe that's 4 too many. I don't know, but um, but some people complain that they're running too many subnets. But they do seem to be extremely smart guys. They are extremely well respected. I every time I talk to them, I'm impressed. So maybe they should be running 7. Maybe they should be running 8. I mean, talent, right? So, I think it's great that there's other decentralized training stabs. I think it's good for there to be competition even amongst the competitions. So, I'm bullish. I think this is a great sign.
Yeah, I just love seeing more teams working on decentralized training because that's honestly it's one of the big missions of Bittensor. So love seeing. I know they've gone through like 30 different bug squashing events in the past week, so I'm sure it's the first couple weeks are going to be a bit chaotic. They're starting off with a pretty big model with 15 billion parameters, so I'm curious how that works out for them. I know Templar's gone a little slow and steady rate, getting through a 1 billion and 3 billion. And yeah, man, I think it's exciting to see the competition though, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. So if we crack this, if anybody cracks the centralized training on on BitTensor, Tau will go crazy. The price of Tau will go absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So because that will be an actual real threat to the frontier model generators. And they'll be like, oh, that's that stupid crypto thing, right? And all of a sudden it'll be ahead of them, and they'll be like, oh shit, we better that thing looks like Linux, and we're looking like IBM OS 2. We better we better get on the stick here, right? So
Yeah, I think that's like the DeepSeek moment, right? Is you have
yeah.
a decentralized model that competes with any of these closed source models. So
Well,
I'm excited to see this.
I'm old, and one of the good things about being old, there's some bad things, but one of the good things is you've seen multiple sort of cycles of history, right? And in the computer world, we first saw the operating system wars, right?
Yeah.
Where you had, and you have to remember, like the mindset in those days was there's zero chance that some open source fucking hippie thing is going to win. Zero chance, because you have IBM with OS2, you have Microsoft with NT, you have Sun with Solaris, right? And there were a couple other sort of oddball ones, but they were all companies producing corporate product with legions of engineers and QA and testing, and no way in hell an open source operating system for that's enterprises need to rely on that requires big companies and these armies of people and billions of dollars, right? And what won? Linux, the hippie version, right? Like
Yeah.
the open version. That was just such a mind, just a mind blowing thing. If looking forward from that moment, it did not look like that was going to happen at all. Same thing happened again with the online services. You had AOL, you had CompuServe, you had Prodigy, which was IBM's thing. You had Genie, which was GE's online service, and then you had Delphi Internet, which eventually was acquired by Rupert Murdoch and Fox, right? So those were the 5 big ones. One of them was going to win and be the online service for sure. While the internet was over here bubbling, and it looked ganky, it had Usenet, it was hard to use. Right? It was kind of like Bittensor today, right? It's sort of all the OGs are in there and Usenet, and and the internet just completely consumed and destroyed all the online services, over a period of a couple of years. That was not an outcome that anyone predicted at the time. So yeah, I think we're seeing another fractal of that same vibe here with Bittensor and AI. And I think crypto is the glue that provides the incentive mechanisms and the coordination layer that makes it possible. So I think we're going to see the same thing happen to the centralized AI companies that we saw happen to the operating system companies and the online services companies.
I love that, man. Awesome. Yeah, and then to top it all off, we had Hash Tensor going live on 16. I think they were going live this week. Kind of the same idea as Tau Hash. They're starting with CASPA, the CASPA network, and trying to aggregating mining power over there. What do you make of these? It's kind of an interesting idea. I mean, obviously, we saw the power of Tau Hash and how popular it became.
Yeah, I mean, Tau Hash is a very simple value prop, right? Like we're mining Bitcoin. Everybody understands that it produces money, right? The Bitcoin that's mined, right? So it's very easy to understand what it's doing. CASPA, I'm less up on. It's sort of like an oddball one. I mean, I know it's got its fans. I'm not digging on it. I'm just saying I'm not familiar with it. I did personally mine some Lucky Coin, which was another oddball one. It is basically a script based, very very similar to Bitcoin mining, and I rented a mining rig. Lucky Coin sort of popped up because it apparently was Bitcoin begat Litecoin, and then Litecoin got forked for Lucky Coin, and then Lucky Coin got forked to create Dogecoin. So it's Lucky Coin was actually the first meme coin, right, in the genealogy, right? So you had Neanderthals, you had, it's like that. Like Lucky is the one in between the serious coins and the joke coins, right?
Hilarious.
So it has an interesting genealogy, and it got abandoned in like 2013, and then somebody rebooted it like a year and a half ago. I was like, oh, okay. I've never mined before. I want to, I knew the guys that were behind the reboot. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try to mine some of this Lucky Coin. So I set up, I set up a miner and kind of got into it for a little while. It was kind of fun. So and what I learned is that when you mine Lucky Coin, you basically can mine like 5 or 6 coins at once, right?
Yeah.
Using the same mining rig, which I didn't understand that before. I don't know if CASPA was the same thing or not, but I think it is. So yeah, I don't think as many people are going to be as into it because it's sort of an oddball coin, but I, in general, I like the idea of these things. So we'll see where it goes.
It kind of reaches across the aisle too, right? If you're on CASPA, you might be interested in this because of that, and that could get you over to Bittensor too.
Yeah, it's a gateway. It's a gateway coin.
Yeah, it's a gateway coin.
It is. That. I mean, and and I actually felt that way about the Tau Hash stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of first of all, there's a lot of money. Like those Bitcoin miners are also Bitcoin people, and they got stacks of Bitcoin, right? So if there's a thing where a way for them to sort of onboard into new coin that they don't really know much about, it's attractive to them, right? Like it's like you say, it's reaching across the aisle. It's a gangplank onto our pirate ship, right?
Nice.
So, and we want these people in our ecosystem, and Tau Hash is like an ambassador in the Bitcoin universe, right? So, I think these things are great. I think they're very good for the ecosystem.
Totally agree. And then we had Void AI is going live over on 106, and this is going to be a Bittensor to Solana bridge. I believe they're opening up support soon, so that's going to be for both Tau and Alpha tokens. So I think it works similarly to Subnet 77 with the cross-chain liquidity. But yeah, I just love to see it. I don't think it's live yet, but like as we talk this entire time about opening the doors and lowering the barriers to entry, this kind of just helps that along.
Yeah, I feel like I think these Void AI guys are doing wrapped subnet, wrapped Tau and wrapped subnet token.
Yeah.
Is that the way I understand it?
I believe so.
So it's it's the same old bridge. We're gonna somehow lock up subnet tokens in the Tau universe, and then we're gonna issue new tokens over here, which represent those locked up tokens over here. And I think it's using the Bittensor EVM layer to do the locking. That's
Yep.
my understanding, right?
Think
So,
so.
so it's a standard bridge, which means it comes with the standard bridge hack vulnerabilities, right? Such as they exist, right? We've seen so many bridges hacked. Hopefully, we've solved those problems, but we might not have, right? We have no way of knowing. So there is risk, just so everyone knows. That said, I do like the idea of wrap tokens flying around on Solana. So that's sort of way one to do something like this. Way two, which is what I believe the sturdy people are doing, is
Taufi.
yeah, they're using a Solana wallet to control a cloud BitTensor native wallet, right? So there's no wrap tokens. There's just remote control of native Tau and native Alpha tokens on the Bittensor blockchain. That's my understanding of how that works,
It's
right?
a
And
good way
that
to think about it. Yeah.
there's no bridges, right? There's just remote control use. My Solana wallet is my login basically to this cloud wallet, which some people really like that because they're like, um, that means that there's always Tau backing the alpha tokens, right? There's no
Yeah.
cheating. Now, so this is a point I've been asked this a lot. So with the other version, with the wrapped alpha tokens that are on Solana, is that cheating? Because now I can buy alpha tokens using USDC or Sol on Solana. Oh my God, is that now no longer backed by Tau tokens? And
Well, you're
right,
hoping you have some kind of arbitrage, right, between the
yes,
wrapped version and the native version. So as long as there's some incentive for folks to arbitrage that, it should be less risky.
yeah.
Doesn't mean there's no risk, but
Yeah, because I think we definitely all do not want to live in the universe where there's paper alpha tokens. I don't
yeah.
want paper shoots, right? Like, like that is once you start having wrap tokens, that is actually a real danger, right? That somebody finds some way to abstract it, or the bridge just gets hacked, right? Like there's that. Um, but I do think, and I think that's what everyone's afraid of. Like right now, for all of its problems with in terms of a UI, the Bittensor Tau Alpha universe is actually quite pure and quite well protected in terms of its relationship between alpha tokens and Tau tokens. So, and I personally also very much respect that design, and I very much like that design also. So, I don't think wrap tokens threaten that though. I don't think, because if you ever if I have one wrap shoots over here, and I had to create it by staking Tau in the Bittensor universe, let's whatever, however many Tau it was. Let's just say it's one Tau, right?
Mhm.
So I stake one Tau, I get one wrap shoots token over on Solana, and then I sell it, right? And off it goes. And then people buy it and sell it for other tokens. But there's still one actual Tau here backing this one shoots at all times, right? It's not like that changes. So just like Tether, right? Tether's backed by, theoretically, let's just assume it's real, right? It's backed by real dollars in a real bank account. And just because
Yeah.
Tether moves around in other chains doesn't it doesn't like change the actual underlying value of Tether backed by real dollars in a real bank account. Does that make sense? Do you agree with me or not?
It does. Yeah, and the nice thing is that as consumers, as customers, we get to benefit no matter which model wins out. So whether
We do.
that's Void AI, whether that's Taofi, I'm excited for both of them to come to market because we can try out both, see what we like, see what works, see what doesn't, and just back the ones that win.
Yeah, no, and it's important for people to realize just how much liquidity is bouncing around in these other ecosystems, right?
Tons.
So, um, yeah, let me just 1 second here. Give me 1 second here. I got to go to DeFi Llama. A quick look at DeFi Llama here. Okay, here we go. So the Ethereum blockchain has 63 billion in TVL, right? So $63 billion rolling around inside of Ethereum that could come into our little universe. So Bittensor has, what? I mean, it's 6%. Well, all Tau is worth, I think it's 3 or 4 billion right now. So
For market cap, yeah.
that's the market cap, right? So quite a bit smaller. Solana has 8.8 billion in TVL rolling around in it. So yeah, so look, we want that liquidity to come to our universe, and it can't unless one of these bridge things works. So we need somebody to crack this.
Completely agree. And we have a lot of shots on net, so I'm excited to see what comes out of these projects. We also had Ganez, MIID, went live on 54. Yuma's backing these guys, and apparently they're pretty legit. They're generating realistic looking identities to test financial crime prevention systems. It's kind of cool. I've heard they actually have a pretty solid industry background. Hoping they can translate that into a solid subnet, but one to watch for sure. We'll see how they adapt to Bittensor.
Wait. So these guys are forgers.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty
let's
funny.
just
Yeah, I
call
mean,
it what it is.
yeah, they're making forgeries and to test, fraud
Yeah,
detection.
to test fraud detection. No,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm sure they actually are. So, but yeah, no, it's but yeah. So I just found it funny that like, wait, I think they're forging IDs. So yeah, but I mean, we need somebody to actually create good forgeries so we can test the forgery detection system. So yeah, so I applaud this.
Love it, man. Yeah, lots of shots on net for Yuma, speaking of which. So cool to see all these new ideas pop up.
Yeah, and I got to be honest. I mean, we were talking a little bit before the we starting the show. The Yuma subnets, like we haven't had a breakout. There's
Right.
nothing comparable to Templar or Shoots that's come out of the Yuma universe yet, which is a little bit perplexing, given that it's Silbert, right? So odd that like not much has happened with the Yuma subnets to date.
Yeah, we'll see if that changes, but they do have a lot, so we'll see if any of these are breakout. I wanted to save the best for last, and that's why we have Const's subnet here. As Subnet 120, Affine is launching his own subnet. Live on stage, he announced it, and I think people are pretty psyched about this one.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think the theory of composability of subnets and a subnet to support the composability of subnets, I think is a great idea. I think Const is onto something here. And I like the fact that the Hair Club president is also a client, right? I like Const running a subnet. I think that's a great idea right there. And so the one sort of thing that was conspicuously absent for me was I noticed, he announced the subnets he was going to start off working with. And it was, it was all the darlings. It was Shoots, I forget who else was in there. Shoots is the one that stood out because I noticed that
Cilium was there.
Targon was not in
Cilium.
there.
Yeah.
Right. So Targon, and I don't know why, because to me it seems like if you have Coke, you should have Pepsi. Targon is, in the top 5 subnets. So if you're doing the composability subnet, why would you freeze out Targon? And I don't understand that. So I know that the Targon guys are well liked and well respected, and and Rob Caro has been integral to a lot of the core ideas behind Bittensor and the technical efforts behind it. So I don't understand like what's going on there, but it was interesting to me that they were not included.
I think it's because Targon's kind of in between. Not like in between their pivot, right? Because they were going from like an inferencing subnet more towards a training subnet. So I wonder if they just have to prove that for Constant lets them in on 120.
Could
Maybe
be.
that's it.
It could be. It could be something. It's probably something I don't understand, but I found that interesting. So
Totally. Yeah, it's curious that he's going after the whole integration side of things with subnets, right? He's trying to take these building blocks and build an end product because we have all the building blocks here to build that. So it's trying to coordinate the miners to work in these subnets to build some end product towards the end of it.
yep. No, I think it's a great idea. Composability was one of the things that made DeFi sing. And I think composability between subnets here will make Bittensor exponentially more powerful. So I think it's a great idea.
Totally agree. But wanted to finish off with something fun. So let's go into fill in the blank. I'll give you a scenario. You tell me what you want to fill in the blank with. So number 1, my biggest takeaway from Proof of Talk is blank.
Institutional money is going to front run consumer money in the Bittensor Tau ecosystem. Didn't call that at all. Didn't expect that at all. My thesis has always been, there's 2 places that new money will come into the Bittensor alpha token ecosystem. One of them is just going to come off of root, right? Which I thought that the root APY would decay faster, and that would sort of force people out of their parents' basement. And and so a lot of that money would run into subnets. Right now, I think it's 8.5% is in subnets,
Still,
and
yeah, still single digits.
yeah, which is not what I expected. I thought like maybe 25% of it would be here by now, right? So so it's not coming. It's not coming off of root for whatever reason. Then I thought maybe consumer bridges and things would arrive first, and that would bring the new money in from Solana and Ethereum. Like we'd get the liquidity that's sort of hanging out doing other things, flowing into our universe. That is threatening to come soon, and I hope it does. But so far, it's not here, so it's not coming from there right now. But it is coming from institutionals. We are seeing these Treasury companies. We're seeing institutional onboarding tools from Yuma and BitGo, and so that was a complete surprise to me. So that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, that was gonna be mine too. Either that, um, or that like the proof of talk just became a BitTensor conference.
Yeah,
It wasn't set up to be that, but yeah, Tao just dominated the conversation there. Love to see it. Shows how powerful the army is. But number two, I want to see more subnets that are blank.
yeah, I mean, it's so the way I would answer this, look, given all, even with all the promise of the subnets and the early successes that many of them are having, um, we still don't have a breakout star, right? We don't have one that's become an Uber or a Facebook, right? Our biggest guy is only worth 120 million, right? And is not profitable, right? Like it's definitely, it's subsidized by selling its emissions, right? Even to this day, right? And that's how the prices are so low. So I would like to see subnets that are sustainable and worth at least $1 billion. I want us to have our big first breakout subnet where all the heads turn and go, oh wow, look at that. Like Ethereum had Uniswap, Ethereum had Aave, um, Ethereum had Lido, right? Like it had things that broke out in a big way. We haven't had that yet. So I want to see our first big breakout star with a sustainable business model.
Yeah, and I think it's still pretty early. Like expecting a lot of these startups to have sustainable revenue models this early is kind of a high bar, but
But
I
I want the
agree.
new Paloopa now, Daddy. You asked what I wanted. That's what I want.
No, I agree. I do agree. And I think I would answer this as I want to see more subnets that are focused on different aspects of training. I'm glad that we're seeing that with IOTA and a lot of the Macrocosmos ones, as well as Rayon Labs and, of course, Templar. But I think there are different angles that we could tackle with the training that could be fixed on Bittensor. So I'm excited to see some more of those for sure, because I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think, as you mentioned, that's how you get those breakouts, I think, is one
Yeah,
way to get breakouts.
we're still sort of in this world where it feels like a lot of BitTensor are sort of like PBS, where it's sort of you know what I mean? Like it's sort of
Yeah.
cerebral and doesn't really give a shit about the bottom line as much, right? It's more about the mission, and I got love for that too, but I feel like less PBS, more Uber, more capitalism, more business. So I just want to see more revenue and more success. That's kind of where I'm at.
Love that. All right. And to close it out, I think blank is the biggest risk that no one is talking about.
I think A16Z creating their own BitTensor clone, like Solana was, and improving some things, is a risk that nobody's talking about this. And A16Z, Andreessen Horowitz, just released a paper where they talked about AI and crypto, and it was something like 15 AI and crypto use cases. Didn't mention BitTensor at all. That screamed out to me because that tells me that they're thinking that they like this intersection, AI meets crypto, and they think it's a very big thing. They're not talking about BitTensor, so that tells me that they're probably cooking their own BitTensor clone, and they'll probably fix some of the things that are wrong with BitTensor. They'll fix the root APY. They'll fix the bridges to the other chains and the other liquidity. They'll have those things up and running on day one, just like Solana fixed the slow transactions per second of Ethereum, right? Like its value proposition was, oh, we can do 100,000 transactions per second compared to your schlumpy 21 or whatever it was at the time, right?
Yeah.
That was a very big value proposition. So my guess is A16Z is going to come out of the woodwork one day and be like, ta-da, here's our BitTensor like thing. And they're going to try to eat our lunch. So I think that's the biggest risk that nobody's talking about.
Yeah, there are a lot of copycats out there, but I do agree that it's a huge risk that you could have just a copy and paste BitTensor fork and then just pay miners crazy amounts to like try to steal that talent.
Yes.
And once you capture those and you like let BitTensor like try to die on the vine, I think that is a big risk. So I agree. I just think it'd be tough to pull off and it'd be very capital intensive. So it would take something like an A16Z to do that.
I think it'd be very difficult to do also. I think replicating, I think BitTensor's origin story, it's not as good as Bitcoin's, but it's still pretty good. It's flawed, but like 90% awesome. Right. So I think, and replicating that and replicating the enthusiasm, even Solana is a mere fraction of the TVL of Ethereum, right? It's amazing. Ethereum still has it's 55% of all the TVL in the crypto universe, and Solana is at schlumpy 6 or 7%, right? So even with all this great stuff, and even with all this VC backing, and even with orders of magnitude faster transaction per second throughput, right? It's crazy. It's crazy that they haven't been able to hunt down Ethereum, but Ethereum has a better origin story and had all that momentum early on. So I think BitTensor's got that Ethereum-like and Bitcoin-like early momentum that is just almost impossible to stop. So I think it'd be difficult. I think A16Z's clone chain, it'll be a thing, but I think it'll be a sideshow like the way Solana is.
Yeah, and you could just spin up a BitTensor subnet to mine that subnet, like they're clone anyway.
I didn't think about that, but yeah,
you could just keep all
like
the
a
miners
Tau
on
hash
BitTensor.
kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, could do
that would be funny. Awesome, man. Well, this is a lot of fun. Yeah, Mark, really appreciate you hopping on today. Where should folks go if they want to learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah, just at Mark Jeffrey on Twitter, and that's pretty much where on X. That's pretty much where I publish everything. I publish hash rate there once or twice a week, kind of depends on the week. And yeah, that's kind of
it, man. Yeah, a bit of housekeeping before we sign off. If you usually watch the show over on YouTube, be aware that it will have its own dedicated channel going forward. So be sure to subscribe over there so you don't miss any future episodes. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the Tau Times newsletter if you want an even deeper dive into this week's updates. We'll see you all next week. Thanks again, sir.
Thank you.